Okay, everyone. I think we're going to get started. And as always, we're going to allow our lunch sponsor, Paul Heathman from Home Trust Bank, to come say a few words. Hi. So, Paul, take it away.
Hey, everybody. I'm Paul Heathman, Home Trust Bank for like 10 years now. 11. This is my 11th year. We love to sponsor lunch for stuff like this. It's really important. I'm part of Tommy's Affordable Housing Committee here at North Ventures. I'm also on the Affordable Housing Advisory Committee at the City of Asheville. We do grant work, policy work, and try to create more units in general, especially affordable ones. This is a big challenge in our area. It's really across the country. I've been sort of trying to teach myself not to make jokes about how impossible it seems, because it does seem impossible. But I can tell you stories of instances where we've solved the affordable housing crisis for families, individuals, and that's, I think, where the focus should be, on one household at a time. I have someone pre-approved right now with $72,500 worth of down payment assistance. Right? So there are solutions. It is very possible. Let's switch gears. Federal Reserve interest rates. Anybody heard any interest rates lately for mortgages? 7. Anybody else heard any interest rates for mortgages? 7's really, really close. I locked a 6.75 yesterday. That was an NCHFA loan that is very high loan to value. So what we want out of the Federal Reserve is we want them to set a map for what they're going to do and then really, really stick to it. And that's exactly what they have not done over the last several years here. But the last couple of weeks have been especially interesting because what they've been saying all along is that we're going to hit this point where rates are going to top out, and then we're going to see the numbers we want to see, inflation and jobs reports, and then we're going to turn around and we're going to start almost immediately cutting. That was like this year. That's what we're supposed to see this year. And we got to a recent meeting, and the most recent meeting was so much more than just a Fed meeting. The chair went on 60 Minutes. They had all these press releases. It's like the worst thing. We want the Fed to talk in their meetings or right after their meetings, and don't talk outside of that. They really, really mess with rates when they go on 60 Minutes. But we saw a whole point swing. There was a few Fridays ago where I got a 5.75. So that was if you were lucky enough to lock in about a 6-hour period, you could have gotten that. You can't win that game though, we're all still hopeful that rates are going to fall over the next year or two, but the Fed is waffling right now. They said they were going to turn the ship around and head the other direction. They have not, and they haven't given us a lot of whys. The market sees inflation and jobs and knows essentially why. But the latest is that rates should be expected to stay higher for longer. We're going to see probably at this point, fewer rate cuts this year than what we were hopeful for. Also, keep coming to these. I change my tune every time the Fed does. So I'll do another update next time. Oh yeah, and also because I get to kind of do whatever I want with this time because I sponsor lunch, I'm gonna finish with a housing adjacent poem for you. It's called The Guest House. So it's housing related, but it's a metaphor. This is by Rumi. This being human is a guest house. Every morning, a new arrival. A joy, a depression, a meanness, some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all, even if they're a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house empty of its furniture. Still, treat each guest on earth He may be clearing you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice, meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. Be grateful for whoever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond. Thanks.
Thanks, Paul. Thank you to Home Trust for always supporting us and doing lunch. So we're very pleased today to have Chloe Donahue and Jake Eckberg from the county with us, and very proud to say that LOTSAR cut a pretty healthy check to support passage of the affordable housing bond and the open space bond. We thought they worked in tandem. So very excited to hear updates about what the bond money is going towards, and hopefully more affordable housing units in the county. So thank you.
Okay. Hi, everybody. So we're going to present on the affordable housing work of the Buncombe County. And as Matt said, I'm Chloe Donahue. I'm the Affordable Housing Bond Project Manager.
My name is Jake Eckberg. I am the Community Development Division's Grant Manager.
So we're going to share some of the metrics that we track and different data definitions that we use to understand the need for affordable housing at the county. And then also going to talk a little bit about our Affordable Housing Committee and our goals, and then delve into some of the work we do in the Community Development Division and some of the things we're looking forward to. Oh, sorry, yes. Okay, so for the assessment of need, this is a depiction of affordable house thinking about affordable housing. So at the county, we understand affordable housing costs. Affordable housing as housing that costs no more than 30% of a household's monthly income, and that includes utilities. And then we also use these terms cost burden and severely cost burden. And so cost burden is the 30%, and severely cost burden is when folks are spending more than 50% on housing. And then our work focuses on this AMI range from 30% to 80%. And AMI is looking at, it's a distribution of all of the incomes in the area. It's using the American Community Survey estimates, and then it's looking at the midpoint of those. And so that AMI is changing each year. HUD calculates it each year, and we use that to understand the rents that will be used in some of our projects and to figure out how much funding to provide to projects that we invest in.
When we look at need for housing, I think a really great baseline for increased need in the past 6 years would be looking at fair market rents. So fair market rents are not market rate rents. I want to make that clear first. What these are rents published by HUD that allow the housing authority's vouchers to cover up to a certain amount of rent. So the way housing vouchers work are not dissimilar for how we look at housing costs, where a tenant would pay 30% of their gross income. And what the voucher does is it's a mechanism to fill the gap between what the tenant is paying and what the voucher will subsidize. And that's based on unit size. So if we look in 2018 to 2024, if we're looking at a one bedroom, we're seeing over 100% increase in the past 6 years that HUD is subsidizing. And if we look a little further on the next slide, we're seeing huge jumps in sales prices, not only for market rate, but also a larger need for affordable rates. So we begin to see this picture of the subsidies that government is providing are increasing drastically. The market rate is also drastically increasing, and resources have to keep up with this. While we know that we need more affordable units to keep up with this, another assessment of need that is necessary to look at is our existing housing stock. One component of it is, how do we maintain this? How do we keep it healthy, safe, and comfortable for all of these residents that are currently residing in affordable units? And how do we preserve the affordability each of those units have? So by our best estimates, there are around 5,200 units in Buncombe County that are providing affordable rents. This is based on a few different factors and excludes a few different things, which I'll clarify. This will mostly look like multifamily developments or any development that has a government subsidy tied to it, whether it be local, state, or federal. And that's the way we were able to collect the data and analyze it. It does not necessarily include things like naturally occurring affordable housing. So this could be something like a mobile home park. And it also does not necessarily include tenant-based voucher units, right? So those are units that a tenant could bring a voucher to, but they're not tied to the unit themselves. They kind of float around. So these are a list of potentially expiring units. Looks very scary at first, and I promise I can clarify, and the picture is not as bad as it looks. This is the earliest possible date that things could expire. What that means is many times affordable housing developments have multiple subsidies layered into them. It's not just a local subsidy, it's not just a state subsidy, there's a conglomerate of funding. Oftentimes these funding sources have differing periods of affordability. So the way we receive the data is in a range of sometimes 10 years, sometimes 15 years. So this is the earliest possible date. It's not guaranteed. And another thing is the way the ownership of each development works would definitely play a factor in how affordability would continue in that development. For example, in 2024, we see a potential risk of 558 units. But when you look at the distribution of ownership, a lot of those 558 units that are set to expire are owned by the housing authority. We know the housing authority keeps things in affordability in perpetuity, meaning that it is their mission. Those units have been affordable for a long time, and they'll continue to be affordable for a long time. The subsidy doesn't really expire. The way the data presented itself for us to show that they were going to expire is because the housing authority sometimes uses some mechanisms like a nonprofit LLC that they sign into an agreement with themselves. So it's very misleading. So like right off the bat, we are seeing a third of what was proposed to be lost. More likely than not, it's going to stay affordable. Another factor to consider are mission-based organizations and nonprofits who own affordable housing developments, and that's more than a third. And the jeopardy really lies within that for-profit owned affordable housing developments. But just because it is a for-profit development does not necessarily mean it will go out of affordability. There are incentives to keep that going. Oftentimes we'll see with like low-income housing tax credit properties that while the original tax credit subsidy is waning, we will see a application for a rehabilitation. So that way the developer can get more tax credits, affordability is shared longer, and the facility is rehabbed, and oftentimes new units are added. So while it was a very grim picture, I have a lot of optimism that we will not lose 1,300 units in the next 6 years.
Okay. And if there's any questions, feel free to ask them. We can also take them at the end. So for the next part, we're going to talk about the Affordable Housing Committee, which is a subcommittee of the Buncombe County Board of Commissioners, and the goals. And so all the data that we just presented, where this committee is tracking those metrics, how they're changing trends, and then we're using those to inform our goals and our investments moving forward. And so the Affordable Housing Committee was formed in 2019. It's made up of 3 of the commissioners, and they delve in more deeply than to then provide recommendations to the full board for different affordable housing related initiatives. And this housing committee is an open meeting. It meets the first Tuesday of every month from 1 to 2:30. And anyone is welcome to come, and we have a public comment period. So if there's anything you want to bring up to them, you're welcome to come and join us.
We also have online access, so our contact information will be on the end, and we'd be happy to put anyone on the list so you can be notified of when meetings are on.
Yes. So these are our high-level goals that guide our work at Buncombe County's Community Development Division. So we we're aiming to increase the supply of affordable housing for rent as well as for homeownership, with thinking specifically about our BIPOC households. And then we're also aiming to preserve the supply of naturally occurring affordable housing, which, as Jake mentioned, are mobile home parks, are different places that are keeping their rents low without any sort of subsidy. And so how are we, we're aiming to help keep those affordable. And then our department also tackles homelessness. We have a homelessness services program manager, and she is looking at ways to reduce and eliminate homelessness in our community. And then the last thing is looking at our voucher use in our community. There's two main types of vouchers: project-based vouchers, all the vouchers are administered by the Housing Authority, but the project-based ones are specific to affordable multifamily rental projects. And so a lot of that helps to keep a lot of our projects viable because they use that as part of their funding sources. And then the other is housing choice vouchers, which allow folks to make choices about where they want to live based on their income and use of those vouchers. So connected to those goals, we have some metrics that we're tracking. So our goal at Buncombe County Community Development is to impact 2,800 to 3,150 affordable housing units by 2030. And so that range is kind of broken down a little bit. So we have 1,500 to 1,850 rental units, looking at that less than 80% AMI, so our low income folks. And then we want those to be an average of less than 60%. So looking at more of our very low income households. And then we also have a goal connected to leveraging the low income housing tax credit through the North Carolina Housing Finance Agency, which is a program that allows for the development of new construction programs, affordable housing developments. And then lastly, thinking about our folks who are in need of more supportive housing, very, very low income, those 30% AMI folks, we want to have at least 200 units for those folks. And then we also have 400 homeownership units that we're aiming for, 500 repairs to existing affordable units, and then 400 units that are thinking more about our workforce housing, the between 80 and 120% AMI.
What I will say about the middle income housing that gets tricky for us as a local government is there are state statutes that prohibit us directly funding the development and physical construction of middle income housing. So that's why there are some other programs put in place that we'll speak to later about how to achieve this goal.
Yeah. So for our direct investments, we're restricted to the 80% or lower AMI.
What's the repair unit?
So these are units that are owned by people who are under 80% AMI, and they are come in the form of grants to different nonprofits in the area. And say myself, Jake, lives somewhere in Swannanoa, and my roof has been leaking for months. There's mold in my house. It is posing a threat to my health and safety. But I don't have the money to repair it, and I don't have money to move and go anywhere else. Oftentimes, those people can be referred to or apply to organizations who will come and do that work for them with grant money from the county, from other funding sources. And that's one of the main mechanisms to preserve that naturally occurring affordable housing, to make sure if someone is in a place that they can already afford, how do we make sure they can stay there and be healthy?
Okay. And then we just wanted to highlight too, so we've been slowly inching up in our county investment in affordable housing work. And so back in 2019, fiscal year 2019, which is 2018 to 2019, the county was investing a little less than $300,000, and now we're all the way up to almost $16 million. And part of that was the infusion of the bond proceeds, as Matt had mentioned. That was a $40 million commitment that the voters, through the voter referendum, agreed to. And so we are we're infusing that into our existing programming to increase our investments. So this is just another way of looking at how those funds are impacting our projects and our goals. And so you'll see that in this most recent year, fiscal year 2024, we've had $17 million invested, which has increased our number of projects that we've impacted to 13 from last year, which was 3, or from the year before, which was 3. We've also invested in 11 different agencies and increased our total units and households supported to 860. So those bond funds are really helping us to expand our investment and impact. Yes. Sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay. Jake's going to go over our goals.
I will go ahead and sort of report out our progress on these goals. These,
Go back to that last slide.
Yeah.
So 565 new units were supported, and then 295 households were supported. What does that mean?
So Jake was talking about the emergency repair program. So the new units supported are like ones that are being built or preserved, and then the household supported is like the tenant
programs.
Yeah, rental assistance or
Thank you.
Absolutely.
And we're going to go into our programs as well, so that'll hopefully be more clear. Yeah.
So these are some metrics on our goals. I will say these are reported quarterly to the Affordable Housing Committee. So you can find these on our committee webpage. These are reported out regularly. The last time these were reported out was February. So these are the most up-to-date numbers we have. So we have 4 different colors going on. So the furthest bar is the amount of housing units that we have committed thus far, with the darkest green being units that have been constructed, light green being those projects that we have committed funding to, but the projects are still trying to break ground, that have LIHTC, and the light blue being that are projects that are seeking LIHTC and have committed funding, and that very light blue at the very edge are projects that are not seeking LIHTC but have committed funding from the county. Right here, we're going to look at our LIHTC units exclusively, and we are seeing a drop in the dark green number from 84. That's just because of the units that have come online since the goals have passed. Only one LIHTC project has been developed. That is Jasper Apartments off of 70. And the funding previous to that also supported Homeward Bound's Compass Point Village. So that's why this number has decreased, because Compass Point Village is not a LIHTC property. Going forward, we will be looking at the goal for households below 30% AMI. So this looks something a lot like permanent supportive housing, which is what Compass Point Village is right down the road. We actually see that this goal has already been surpassed in its commitments. And oftentimes this is because a lot of LIHTC properties will also include units below 30% AMI as well. So we see this continuing to happen, and the Affordable Housing Committee has indicated they might want to adjust this goal so that we continue to work at it and grow with it, because we're not going to stop at 30% units just because this goal is satisfied. It was just a number that we're going to have to readjust to make sure that we can continue to track and support that initiative. Ownership units for under 80% AMI is underway. This is mostly completed through down payment assistance as well as some construction loans. This is a goal that has taken a little longer to get going because the mechanisms for it are so strained. Just as we said, with high interest rates, getting someone to close on a house is very, very difficult without a lot of subsidy. And our program limits the amount that we can give based on construction price. So there's some difficulties in getting this moving, but happy that we have been moving the goalposts and seeing more applications to address affordable home ownership in this county.
What are the construction prices for the top end of the sale price?
It depends. So the units that we're seeing are built by organizations like Habitat for Humanity, who are selling them for much less than they're being constructed. And they're being able to do construction because there's heavy involvement with volunteer labor and there's heavy government subsidy. So the true cost, I wouldn't be able to tell you offhand. I know they're selling probably around anywhere from like 300,000 and below. And that's often paired with a down payment assistance as well.
So just to clarify, so if we have 300,000 or below houses for sale, there's a good chance that there would be some subsidy and down payment assistance for those?
Not necessarily. So that kind of goes to that naturally occurring affordable housing aspect, right? This is only accounting for what the county has invested in. There may be some naturally occurring affordable housing that is in a rural part of the county that might be selling less because the housing market there isn't as competitive as it is in the city of Asheville. So what we see a lot of times with those home ownership units, they're more centralized areas, aren't in the city of Asheville itself. So that's sort of where a lot of that funding is targeted. That's not to say a homeowner who wants to get a house out in a rural community can apply to nonprofits for down payment assistance, depending on each organization's qualification.
This doesn't include the housing choice vouchers.
Correct. This does not include the housing choice vouchers.
But there are vouchers that subsidize your neighborhoods.
From what I do know, yes.
1 to 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I think the way vouchers are allocated are, it's like a science, it's very fickle, so I don't want to speak too much on it. I do think the abundance of vouchers in our community are tenant-based or project-based vouchers, but there are vouchers to support home ownership.
And these goals are ones that we've infused funding into. It's not, there's definitely projects happening that we don't have funds in and they're not encompassed here. So that would be the vouchers. Yep.
One of the last ones here are our emergency repair goals. So this is starting from July 1st of 2021, I believe, or 2020. And we have completed 287 repairs on that time with 110 more committed. And with this new grant cycle upcoming, we are going to see this goal come closer to attend and also look at how we can continue to invest in emergency repairs in our community.
How do people, like, if there was somebody in that situation, do they just go to your website? Like, what's the process for somebody who needed that emergency repair kit?
So I do refer people to the agencies in the area, whether we have funded them or not, depending on what the situation is. But they will make application to the nonprofit providing the service, and then the nonprofit will go through the application process with them. If it's not the best fit for them, try to refer them to someone else. And then on the back end, a few months later, we will reimburse the nonprofit for the work completed.
Okay, so this next part, we're going to talk about the work that we're doing in the department, talk about the programs that are connected to the goals that we just presented. So these are some of our main activities in the Community Development Department. We administer the Affordable Housing Services Program, which has several sub-programs that I'll share more about. And this is how the bond funds are being utilized and deployed. And then we administer a community development block grant for neighborhood revitalization. And that's a federal program that we are working with a couple of different agencies for. We also we're administering American Rescue Plan funds, and that's for fiscal recovery purposes. And we'll share a little bit more about those programs as well. And then we have a community-oriented development program, which is, as Jake mentioned, a way that we're trying to get at some of our workforce housing and middle-income housing. And then we also have a fair housing plan that is just got rolled out last year. And we're doing several activities related to that. And then our homelessness activities, and we participate in the continuum of care, trying to eliminate homelessness in our community. So the Affordable Housing Services Program is an investment program. We have applications from nonprofits and for-profit entities that may apply around December, January. So it closed at the end of January, the application cycle. And we then are reviewing as staff, we're reviewing all of the applications and doing some internal analysis, and then we'll present those to the Affordable Housing Committee, who will then recommend the projects to fund to the Board of Commissioners. And so this is like a half a year process that we undertake every year to distribute funds through our programs. So these are some of the sub-programs of the Affordable Housing Services Program. We have construction loans, and those are for either new construction projects or rehabilitation projects. We also have our down payment assistance program, which provides loans to the entity that's then distributing those down payment assistance packages, I guess.
Yeah.
And then we have our tenant-based rental assistance program. So for our entities that are doing tenant-based rental assistance. Then we also have a construction grant program, which looks similar to our loan program, but it's for projects that are aiming to get that less than 30% AMI. So there's no profit generation happening for those projects, and so we provide a grant to subsidize those projects. And that could look like the permanent supportive housing days in project down the road, or like a homelessness shelter type of situation. And then we also have our emergency repair program, which is also a grant. We have a New Start program, which is supposed to be a sort of open-ended sub-program that allows folks to kind of propose innovative ideas. And so we consider those as part of all of the different programs. And then we have an administrative support grant as well, which we found has helped some of our nonprofits that are kind of getting off the ground on new housing related programs, and that can help them have kind of like a planning year type of thing. So just to share a little bit about some of our preferences, these have kind of been honed in each year, but we really like to see projects that are leveraging other types of funding, whether that's debt that they've worked out with got committed to from a bank or some other financial institution, other types of equity, other types of grants from Dogwood or some of our other foundations in the area. Another thing is for our construction loans in particular, deferred developer fees are something that we're looking at. So how much is the developer reserving for not paying themselves, essentially, to help subsidize a project. And then we are also focused on projects that are going to get referrals from the continuum of care for households experiencing homelessness. And so having that homelessness focus. And then this is a new one for this year, which is looking at our renewable energy impact. And so how are these, especially for the new construction and repair programs, how are they incorporating renewable energy systems into their projects, and trying to advance our sustainability goals as well. So this is the most recent year of funding, fiscal year 24, which is what we're in now. And so these are just some of the different projects we wanted to highlight. We provided 3 tenant-based rental assistance loans to these organizations. We also have 3 construction loans in progress. And this is not encompassing the bond funded projects. This is just through our general funding stream. So we've supported 3 different new construction projects and 3 emergency repair projects and 1 new start project. So we'll be, with this year, as we said before, 514 households will be impacted. And then to delve a little bit into the bond-funded projects. And so those are, all 3 of them are new construction projects. We've committed 13.6 million. Actually, that changed last night. We increased the amount for Lakeshore Villas by 300,000 last night at the Affordable Housing Committee meeting. So those numbers have changed a little bit, but generally the same, generally a little less than $14 million for this fiscal year. So Maribel is one of the projects. It'll be in Weaverville, and it'll be 156 affordable units. And Lakeshore Villas, which is Mountain Housing Opportunities, our local housing nonprofit, and it's going to be in Arden, and it's going to be 120 multifamily units. Both of those projects received 4% low-income housing tax credits, which is an amazing program, but it means that we have to infuse more local funding into those to subsidize the cost of their construction. So that's why those amounts are so high. But because we have the bond, we're able to invest these funds into those types of projects and see such an impact on our unit goal. And then our last one is called Redwood Commons. It's Buckeye Community Hope Foundation. It'll be in Asheville, and it'll be 70 units for seniors.
Is that development also gonna potentially with disabilities?
All of these? Or
Just the Redwood Commons.
So with my understanding of senior developments, there's usually a age minimum that can be adjusted to someone who has a disability. I don't know the number offhand, but say it's 65. If you have a disability, usually you can get in if you are age 55. But all these have to be ADA compliant.
Mm-hmm.
Where is that located?
Redwood Commons, is that the one off of Swano River Road near the Aldi?
Yes, it's near, yeah.
Swano River Road near the Aldi.
So right down.
It's being like car wash and all.
Yep.
So those are the amounts that the county funded. What percentage of those are the project?
So I don't have those numbers offhand. I can provide them for you. But the Lakeshore Villas one in particular, I'm most familiar with it. Its cost, their total project costs are $42 million. So yeah.
I will say each of the construction loans have, depending on the type of project it is, will have different caps that they can request from the county. So it's not like an infinite ask. There are some prescriptive guidelines, with the baseline being 10% of the construction cost per unit in that development. Ask can increase from that 10% cost if it is a 4% project and needs more local subsidies. So these are outlined in our policy, and we can brought enough copies for everybody so you can read about that more in depth. But there are some prescriptive guidelines about how much we can actually support each project.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Maribel is one of our 4% projects, and it also has a significant number of units, and so they were able to request a higher amount. Yes.
These, the 156, is that the entire community, or is that a portion of?
That's the community, yep. So it'll be 156 affordable units.
Is support ever given in the form of land, like Buncombe County owns land or something? Is that a?
So the way that the Affordable Housing Services Program policy is written currently is that we do not support, the funds can't be used for land acquisition for these projects, and so they have to find other sources for that purpose. And that has to do with the way that we are protecting our investment through the deed restriction and things like that. And so, yeah, so all of these projects, they've gone out and found the land on their own and have options on it or have already purchased it.
The county owned land could be a possibility.
Yeah, so I'm going to go into some of our county-owned projects that we're working. Yeah. So this is just projects that we've like invested funds into that our partners are taking the lead on.
So here are some of our other funding sources. So like Chloe said, we had our general fund allocation, we have our bond funded allocation. This past year, we were awarded 2 separate grants, both tied to federal funds. So on the left, we have our CDBG and our Community Development Block Grant Neighborhood Revitalization Grant. It's too much to say in one go. I prefer CDBG. We were awarded $400,000 from the North Carolina Department of Commerce, which received this allocation from the federal government. And the focus is home repair. We put out an RFP and received 1 applicant. So they were awarded $200,000 to support 40 households. And then the other federal funds we are also using for emergency repair outside of our general fund would be the American Rescue Plan Act fiscal recovery funds. We were awarded $400,000 from another county department to pursue these activities. And we had 2 awardees, with one being housing opportunities and the other being actual area housing humanity, with potential of impact of 26 houses. And CDBG has a potential impact of 40 houses, or a minimum impact rather of 40 houses. The reason that this one is so much higher than ARPA is that ARPA has a higher minimum spending requirement. We want to see deeper repairs done on a house. So the bar is set at 10,000, while the bar for CDBG is much lower. It can be as low as 3,000. So very minor repairs, if you like something in the bathroom. While ARPA, we want to see things like, can we address foundation settlement? So it's much larger repairs. And another mechanism that we use to incentivize affordable housing and that middle income housing is something I spoke to earlier, which are our zoning incentives. So like I said, the county it is not legal for us to fund construction of anything above 80% AMI or give money for the purpose of affordable housing above 80% AMI. So the best way we have addressed this is with a density bonus incentive for developers. And these are a point-based system. So you could potentially increase your density on a plot of land up to 250% if you max out the score. And the scores are based on 3 categories. The first being the community score. So this is typically where the unit mix is most heavily played into. So that would be the amount of affordable units in the development. It would also be the amount of that middle income or workforce housing units available in that development. The next would be the environment and transit score. So this is where points for like alternative energy use would come into play, preservation of open space, and proximity to transit lines. And the last would be the economy score. So this would be like a mixed use development that might have businesses on the ground floor, something like a community building or a community garden. And that's what you would try to score for in that matrix to get up to that potential of 250%. So if you have 5 acres in an R2 zoning district, that's five units per acre. You can have, or 12 units. You can essentially have 60 acres on those 60 units on those 5 acres, excuse me. But with max density, you could get up to 150. So you could over double the amount of units you could have. And that's the tool we have to incentivize middle income housing and affordable housing. Oftentimes too, affordable housing developments that receive subsidies use this, like East Haven also use this to increase their density to allow for more affordable housing units. So it's not exclusive to that 80% to 120% range we also see in our affordable housing developments.
So the next thing we're going to talk about is our county-owned site. So this is a new process that we're moving into. We've been consulting with, or we've hired UNC School of Government's Development Finance Institute to consult on some different sites that the county owns to see if they would be, well, first it started with, would these be feasible for affordable housing? And then from there, for the sites that were feasible, thinking about how to structure processes for public input and do some of that pre-work to prepare the site for a developer to come in and develop the site. So the two that I'll highlight are, one of them is on Cox Avenue in downtown. That is potentially, it's a site that's viable for a 4% LIHTC award. And what they're aiming to do is 130 units is the goal for that site. And thinking about how much we'd have to invest per unit. So that's some of the things that DFI is helping us figure out, is like, what would the county's investment have to be in a project like this for the amount of units that we are aiming for. And so for that Cox Avenue site, actually, there's going to be 2 upcoming community engagement events. So tomorrow night from 6 to 7:30 at 200 College Street in downtown, we're going to share more about the plans for this site and get some feedback from the community. And so anyone is welcome to join. And then we also have a virtual opportunity to provide, to hear more about the site and provide feedback. And that'll be on Saturday from 10 to 11. And then there's like a registration for that because it'll be over Zoom. So if anyone is interested, and we also have a website that is just going to have all of the materials that'll be shared during those meetings posted. And so you can also find more information there too. The other site that we're exploring is Valley Street, is on Valley Street, and it's this little triangle, and that's actually where our offices currently are. And so the timeline is a little bit different because they have to move all of the planning department out of that and the permits department out of that site. But they're looking at another 4% LIHTC project for that site, potentially 100 to 190 LMI, is low to moderate income units. And then thinking about the gap is slightly higher, but potentially $90,000 per unit that we would help to support. Yes. Oh, that's a good question. I do not have the answer to that, but our website does. I will come see me after, and I can point you to.
46.
Yeah, 46. Yeah.
It's 46 and 30.
Yeah, it encompasses so it's our building and then also like the parking lot that's above it. So I just don't know that off the top of my head, but I'll find it for you. So the county has a building on Woodfin Street, and so they are making space for us up there. They're kind of rearranging some things, and so we'll have some new offices up at, and also to help to co-locate everything into one space. So most of the departments, I think, will be in that site, so everything will be together, and hopefully that'll promote more collaboration and things. And then the other project I want to talk about too is Ferry Road. I don't know if folks have heard about this yet, but the county owns a site down more south off of Brevard Road. And so we are looking at a mixed use development for that project. We're also working with UNC's DFI consultants for this project. And they have come up with this plan, which will be it'll be a combination of like our open space and our affordable housing goals. And so there's going to be 72 conserved acres, protected waterways and buffers. They're going to have parks on the site and a greenway and trails. And then for the affordable units, it's going to be 270 affordable units, 115 homeownership units, with 50 of those being affordable, and then 260 market rate units. So it'll be a mixed income development. So this is still in like the beginning phases of the planning process. There isn't like a developer involved or anything. And so we are kind of going through the due diligence process as the county to prepare the site and our role and what the future master development process will be like.
Lastly, something that has been undertaken by one of our coworkers is affirmatively furthering fair housing. Also, one I will probably trip my tongue on a few times while I speak. And this is part of those CDBG&R funds that we had taken in. Federal government wants municipalities to look at barriers to housing for people who have experienced housing discrimination in the past. So this is a wide class of people that could be people of color to people with disabilities, to sexual orientation, sexual preference, religion, service animals. It's quite a broad range. So what we've done at the county is begin the fair housing plan that would span from 2024 to 2026. And we begun with a analysis of impediments and have started writing the plan. And a lot of the analysis of impediments revolves around issues that we all recognize in this community: lack of supply of housing, lack of knowledge around housing rules and laws, and how to, one, bolster the supply of housing, but also be able to make information more readily available to people who need it and who may be experiencing active discrimination in housing and not know it or not know the proper avenues to address it.
Great. So our last section is just thinking about some of the opportunities that we're exploring and different initiatives we're pursuing in the future. And so we are working closely with our other county departments who are also either administering funds that are related to housing or impact housing. And so we have our strategic partnerships department that administers all of the ARPA funds. And so there's some overlapping projects within that funding stream that also impact housing. We also have weatherization and solarization programs through our sustainability department, and so they are consulting on our energy efficiency initiatives within our programs. And then our health and human services department has home and community care block grant funding, and so they also impact housing and access to housing. And then something we have been doing is we've been working closely with the city staff to align our processes as much as possible to try to streamline some of the applications for funding, because the city has their own funding sources, we have ours. So, and a lot of times folks are applying to both, and so wanting to work together with the city of Asheville's community development and planning departments as much as possible. And then we are also, we serve on the Asheville Regional Housing Consortium, which administers home funds, which are a federal source of funding for affordable housing. And so we serve on that and work closely with those regional partners. We are also participating in the housing IFA stands for
Impact Focus Area.
Impact Focus Area, which is part of the Reparations Commission. And then we also serve on the Continuum of Care, which is working on homelessness related initiatives. And then we are constantly trying to gather resources and make sure that we're sharing out all of the changing things that are happening in the affordable housing world. So Jake developed an affordable housing map that shows where those affordable units are, and folks can go onto the map and search by filter what they're looking for and find affordable housing department or apartments that they can potentially apply to. And then we also have a dashboard that is tracking our metrics and trying to keep them updated as much as possible, and it's connected to our goal of transparency.
I'd also like to add that one of the questions we got, I believe, from you, ma'am, was how do people learn about these existing resources? One thing we have changed in the past year is we have tried to make our website more resource oriented for it. That's kind of all over the place. So it's sort of broken up into these different segments like renter resources, homeowner resources. I'm a funder and I want to be a part of this. How do I become a part of this? I want to apply for funding, things like that. So that is oftentimes how people reach out to me and also become aware of different community resources.
And then the last thing is this past year, we hosted our second annual Affordable Housing Partner meeting. And so we've invited all the folks we've funded, all the partners that we work with regularly to this meeting so that we can kind of work through, get some feedback on our programs, kind of work through some different initiatives that we're working on. And we're planning on making that an annual thing. So we're constantly improving and making sure that we're meeting the needs of our partners that we work with. And that's all we have. Are there any additional questions?
Forgive me if you said it, but there was like 3 increases in funding last year. And the year before, like what caused that? Was it because of the need, or was it just internally the department just trying to apply for more grants?
So it's the bond funds. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we also received some federal funds that we're administering too. So.
Awesome. Well, we definitely have some policy information over here. If you guys want to talk to Chloe or I one-on-one, we are happy to stick around and talk. Thank you, Land of Sky, for hosting us, and we appreciate all of you. Thank you.